Welcome to the 51st annual meeting of the Lancaster Conservancy members. My name is Phil Wenger, and I am blessed to serve as the president of this organization. We are delighted that you have chosen to spend some time with us here today. It's important starting out here to thank our annual sponsors who go above and beyond in their support. The Clark Associates, Electron Energy Corp, Dart Container, RETTEW, PennStone, and Nimblist support us all year long. Our agenda tonight is simple. We're going to spend 30 minutes, and our board chair first will conduct a business meeting to elect new members and officers. Then we're going to honor departing members who have completed their terms of service. And we're going to share some brief departmental updates. And then lastly, we're going to recognize and thank several of our key partners with some awards. So at this point, I would like to introduce our board chair that I've had the pleasure of serving with for the last 2 years, John F. Pfeiffer, Jr.
Welcome, everyone, to the 2021 annual meeting of the Lancaster Conservancy. We appreciate you joining us virtually this evening and sincerely hope we can gather in person very soon. As I conclude my 2-year term as your board chair, I want to thank you for giving me the privilege of serving. And what an exciting journey it has been. Think back 2 years ago when we gathered to kick off our 50th anniversary, and I reminded everyone Conservancy is spelt with a U. Since then, we accomplished a major rebranding and renewed our focus to save as much natural land as possible, all because of you. In the last 2 years, the number of acres your Conservancy protects has grown by 24%. That is over 1,696 new acres for a total of 7,945 acres of natural land protected forever. Think about that. 1,696 acres, almost 3 square miles of habitat for wildlife and for our community in just the last 2 years, all because of you. During that time, our annual operating budget has grown to over $2 million. We've added staff in development, stewardship, and land protection. And because of you, we have raised $6 million to acquire and responsibly care for our land. On February 9th, 2021, a day this organization should celebrate every year, your board confirmed your generosity and dedication to protect and preserve nature by unanimously agreeing to spend a record $4 million for 400 acres of untouched natural wilderness that had the potential to be developed, all because of you. This organization is strong and growing, and all this has occurred in spite of, or perhaps because of, COVID. Our time, nature's time, is now, all because of you. I express my sincere gratitude to our dedicated board of directors, our amazing volunteers, our energetic staff, and our outstanding professional leadership. But I especially thank you, our donors and members. We flourish because of you. At this point, I'd like to call the business portion of the annual meeting to order. You, our members, elect new board members and approve the officers of this corporation. This year, we have no other business. We have a robust governance committee that met monthly this spring and vetted multiple candidates. Their recommendation went to the board, where both the slate of officers and 4 new board member nominations received unanimous approval to proceed to a final vote by you, our members, this evening. Here are the recommended new board members' nominations elected to serve on a 3-year term. Lisa Marshall is the coordinator of secondary STEM for the School District of Lancaster. She has spent her career teaching mathematics and working as an assistant principal in the School District of Lancaster. She believes kids need to get out into nature and learn about our complex natural world. She is currently working with Keith Williams our community engagement coordinator, to develop programming for students at Climbers Run. Born and raised in Lancaster, Mary Louise Shank is an avid naturalist who currently serves as chairperson of the Willis and Elsie Shank Foundation, which supports various nonprofit organizations in Lancaster County. She both loves the land and cares for her family with equal passion, whether making pesto or teaching her grandkids about bugs and birds. Protecting this area's critical habitat is her life's mission. Doug Hoke is a lifelong resident of York County and deeply involved in his community, not only as a York County commissioner, but through Burlard service and volunteer. He is a supporter of 4-H, an active member of his church, and enjoys bridge and golf. He brings passion and knowledge along the Susquehanna National Heritage Area, having served on that organization's board for the past decade. And he certainly sees the Susquehanna River conservation landscape as a critical factor in protecting land along the river. Sarah Sally Jeffers is a retired attorney and a passionate conservationist who recently moved to Lancaster from New York City. Through her family foundation, she has been involved with the National Audubon Society since the 1980s and currently serves as a board member, representing the Northeast Atlantic Flyway, which includes Pennsylvania. She is also on the board of the Seaboard Restoration Institute. She believes we must protect habitat, especially our aviary friends, and loves hiking the beautiful portfolio of lands the Conservancy has acquired. Next, we present the officers of the board for election. Immediate past chair, myself, John F. Pfeiffer Jr., board chair, Sarah Lamachetti, board vice chair, Eric Nordstrom, board treasurer and chair of Finance Audit Committee, Jen Lavar, board secretary and chair of Land Protection, Chris Ginder, chair of Community Impact, Julie Jones, chair of Stewardship, Jamie Rotman. We have a motion to elect this slate of officers and new members to the board. A quick poll will appear on your screen. Please click approve or disapprove, and we will tally those votes. I am happy to announce we have overwhelming support to elect these new members and officers. Thank you and congratulations. At this point, I'd like to turn the meeting back to Phil Wenger, our president.
Thank you, John. We have some terrific board members who are leaving. They've served 6 and 9 years. All of them have been here as long as I've been here. And we wish we could thank them in person. But we want to take a few minutes right now to honor them with some words. Each board member is going to be thanked by the senior vice president whose board committees they served on. So first up is John McCran. He's the former board chair that I worked under for 2 years before John Pfeiffer, and he's going to be thanked by Kate Gonick. Next, Alan Peterson and Jamie Morrison are going to be thanked by Brandon Tennis for their service and stewardship, and Carl Pike will be thanked by Fritz Schroeder, who worked with him in Community Impact.
John served as a board member from 2012 until 2021. During that time, the Conservancy had 4 CEOs. We shifted to a focus on education, expanded into city greening projects, implemented a large landscape protection effort, and addressed 3 separate pipeline projects. John provided great counsel on all these issues and led the board through the process of advocating for moving the Atlantic Sunrise Pipeline out of the recently acquired Shanks Ferry Nature Preserve and the Tuckahoe Pfeiffer Preserve, while working hard to maintain our community relationships. During his 9 years with the Conservancy, John served on the Governance, Executive, Development, and Urban Greening, past Urban Greening Committee. From 2017 until 2018, John served as board chair. He was an early Water Week supporter, and it was John who had the foresight to urge Phil to take on the role of CEO, a decision that has resulted in an incredible expansion of Conservancy land protection efforts and the hiring of the largest, most collaborative team in Conservancy history. John is the owner of an outdoor-focused city business, PennStone, and their logo is "Life is built outdoors." Wow, does that make sense? And he has a long history of engagement with city projects, community efforts, and protecting our environment. John has a keen eye for planning and the importance of personal relationships. He gives 100% to everything he does and has been an incredible supporter of all things Conservancy. I personally will miss John's wit, his perspective, and the hope, and I do hope that he returns to the board again sometime. But in the meantime, I know he has our best interest and the interest of his community and our community at heart. Thanks, John. Really, really enjoyed working with you.
Dr. Alan Peterson is a practitioner of human health. He is an advocate for the relationship between people and nature as essential to human health. From this perspective, Dr. Peterson is a steward of the land, literally serving for years on the stewardship committee, aside from his other board duties. His learnings may be complex, but his actions are simple, a great lesson for us all. But one of Dr. Peterson's greatest gifts to the Conservancy as an advocate land steward is his persistent focus on time and its relationship to ecology. That our actions now have impacts later is the forethought, not afterthought, to Dr. Peterson. And he has given me the blessing to stick to those actions of the long, hard road when the easy road is merely convenient rather than sustainable. That's a tough approach for a job that's never done, but it's also the correct one each and every time. Dr. Peterson, we are grateful for your service. Jamie's passion for the Conservancy's mission is reliable. When the Conservancy calls, Jamie responds and then hands over his business card and says, "Call again, anytime." And he means it. And we have called time and again. Like us all, Jamie is an advocate for land preservation, but he understands well the flip side of that coin, and as such, has served well on the stewardship committee, advocating stewardship needs to the board. As stewardship ramps up for a bold move to build out strategically to keep pace with our success in land protection, it was Jamie who spoke clear that this was the right move to make. Sometimes all a big decision needs is a confident voice. I've never known Jamie's voice to quiver, and I've never known it to speak without good reason. That's reliable. Jamie, we are grateful for your service.
So Carl is a lover of trees, and Fritz's system is down and he would be making these words for you today, but I'm just going to step in his place. Carl's ultimately responsible for and passionate for much of the tree canopy we have here in the city of Lancaster. He worked with all the committed volunteers at Lancaster Tree Tenders. He pushed, researched, and persuaded in education the next generation of tree lovers who oversaw the planting of 4,000 trees in the city of Lancaster. His passion for trees is equally matched with his passion for education, as he chaired our education committee for years that oversaw the initial development of programming for Climbers Run Nature Center. He's a former F&M professor, and he's influenced numerous students and professors to get involved in making Lancaster a better place. And he's done that one tree and one student at a time. Thank you, Carl, for your service to the Conservancy and to our community. You are our most committed friends, and you've read our materials and headlines, and it's been a year like no other. COVID added to what was already a full plate. We don't use the word extraordinary lightly, but it's been an extraordinary year. So rather than hear it from my voice, I want you to hear the executive summaries of our departments from our 3 senior VPs. First up is Kate Gonick. I can tell you Kate is the strongest horse in our stable. She is the Senior VP of Land Protection and General Counsel, and she brings great wisdom and talent. She has mentored me in my position, and I've learned so much because of her passion for protecting the land. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you, Phil. And thanks to all of you participating in this meeting. The Conservancy's land protection efforts continue despite the challenges of the pandemic, and we're poised to expand in the coming year. We are focused on making connections and are working in 2 large nationally recognized landscapes, the Highland region, which runs along northern and eastern Lancaster and York counties, and the Susquehanna River Conservation Landscape along the Susquehanna. We recently acquired a critical connector track in the village of Peckway that links the Peckway Nature Preserve with additional sections of the Conestoga Trail and provides a forested uplands buffer to the Peckway Creek. This 33-acre tract was a realtor sale project requiring private donor funding and will be the subject of a DCNR 2021 grant application. The steep slopes and ridges of this preserve include rock outcroppings and diverse habitat, and it will be managed with a habitat focused. Just last month, we completed an almost decades-long effort of working with our partners at the Farm and Natural Lands Trust of York County and the National Park Service to acquire the 270-acre rice property in York County. This property is across from Pinnacle, Tuckwan, House Rock, and Reed Run. This exquisite tract has been owned and managed by the same family for over 100 years, and one of the brothers retained part of the land and lives on it. We were able to acquire this exceptional property with a combination of a large grant from the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources based on a match, and that was the value of our Wizard Ranch project made possible by the Conservation Fund, and also a donated match of lands from Brookfield Renewable, funding from York County, and private donors like you. This preserve contains almost a mile of Councilman's Run, is within a national natural heritage area adjacent to game lands, just downstream and upstream from the Conservancy lands, and it will also connect to the Captain John Smith Water Trail and the Mason-Dixon Hiking Trail. Later this year, we will add to this protected and connected landscape with acquisition of Old Camp Donegal, which is actually known as the Mill Creek property. These 129 acres are directly adjacent to Federal Energy Regulatory Commission protected Brookfield Renewable Lands. You can see that in your map there. It's upstream from the Conservancy Conewago Preserve and adjacent to the Mason-Dixon Trail. The property includes 2 streams, one a headwaters and one a naturally producing trout stream, and also natural heritage area core habitat. This preserve has direct access from a township road, and you can hike in across those Brookfield Firk lands from McCall's Ferry Road. An amazing tract of land with beautiful upland level forest and meadow and forested steep stream buffers. Later this year, we will also acquire 155 acres, which we refer to as the Conewago Tract in the Highlands region of Lancaster County. This property completely surrounds the Lancaster County Conewago Trail and includes the Conewago Creek, which is the site of an ongoing floodplain restoration project and will provide great opportunities for our community impact team to tell the story of water protection efforts in Lancaster County and the role of upland forests, meadows, and riparian buffers in that effort. The restoration project includes Mountjoy Township and Londonderry Townships and provides additional opportunities for developing partnerships with our municipal friends. The Conewago Trail acquisition is a culmination of over 10 years of conversations with the owner and could not be possible without your donations, and the Conservancy's efforts to secure private funding and these expanded partnerships with the communities that I was talking about. During the acquisition phase for all of these properties, we secure baseline information, working with our stewardship team to ensure that they have the preliminary background information they need to move forward with management planning. Our incredibly hard, I can't say this enough, our incredibly hardworking Senior VP of Stewardship, Brandon Tennis, is with us every step, and his counsel is critical to the selection and implementation of sound acquisition projects. Brandon is now going to tell you what happens after we acquire the land. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, Kate. With the complete acquisition of what we in the Conservancy refer to as Phase 2B of the PPL deal, a decades-long private-public partnership to protect forested utility land along the Susquehanna, we have now connected and grown through additional acquisitions of properties enough nature preserves to form a conservation area known as the Lancaster River Hills. The River Hills Conservation Area consists of 1,630 acres across 9 preserves, some of which are sure to be a few of your favorites, including Holtwood Nature Preserve, Kelly's Run and Pollinator Park, Pinnacle Overlook, Tuckland Glen and Piper Nature Preserves, Reed Run, House Rock, and now the newly established Peckway Nature Preserve. Beyond Peckway is Shanksbury Wildflower Preserve due north and Fox Hollow Nature Preserve due east. The River Hills Conservation Area protects the forested ridges and ravines buffering the Susquehanna River from agriculture and development while pouring out cold, clear water and building up dark brown mesic soils and growing some of our region's biggest oak and hemlock trees. Traversing this string of preserved lands is our region's most wild animals, including both prey and predator species, such as fox and bald eagles. This is their refuge. Also traversing the string of preserved lands is the Conestoga Trail, a long trail, the first 9 miles of which through the River Hills being the most backcountry. But another magnificent fact is that the Conestoga Trail terminates 66 miles north in the Conservancy's Upper Hopewell Furnace Nature Preserve. Talk about connectivity. But within the River Hills specifically, the Conservancy is leading an initiative to capitalize on the connectivity of land preservation by focusing on the connectivity for habitat, ecosystems, and passive recreation such as trails. The Conservancy is leading all partnering regional land managers through an integrated land management plan consisting of a dozen local and state partners to manage natural lands and trails holistically, meaning across boundaries, and collaboratively, meaning across ownership, as part of the Susquehanna Riverlands Conservation Landscape. It is the same forest and same ecosystem. To manage it as separate is repeating the mistakes of dividing it into parcels in the first place. And therefore, we are merging management plans of individual preserves as one management plan for the conservation area. We will create more balance between passive recreation and habitat by prioritizing the needs of habitat as foremost to that of recreation. In as such, we are pulling back the unchecked popularity of Tuckland Glen and Piper Nature Preserve by redeveloping a trail system that, by design, better protects the preserve against unintentional impacts of visitation. We will start implementing the design through 6 weeks of partnering with the PA Outdoor Corps youth and young adult programs to reduce the stream crossings and reroute sections of trails from stream banks to elevations above the floodway with control points for sustainable creek access. We are also building up House Rock Nature Preserve as a hub for sustainable access to the backcountry of the River Hills, where a 1.2-mile ADA trail will tie into the Conestoga Trail with access to Reed Run and Tuckland to the south, as well as provide immediate first responder access to Wind Cave to the north. And we have established the Peckway Nature Preserve that permanently protects the character of the village of Peckway by surrounding it with preserved forests managed for wildlife as a corridor around streets and homes. It may have taken 40 years to preserve enough space to create the Lancaster River Hills Conservation Area, but it only took the Conservancy 5 years to create the Pelham Hills Conservation Area along the Susquehanna River in northeastern York County. Pelham Hills Conservation Area, made up of the Pelham Hills Nature Preserve and Wizard Ranch Nature Preserve and consisting of 1,041 acres, is the fastest concentrated growth of preserved lands amongst all 47 of the Conservancy's nature preserves, which is why the Conservancy is developing a master plan for the region to ensure a balance between habitat, ecosystem functions, and passive recreation. And you too may participate in this planning process by going to our website at lancasterconservancy.org and registering your attendance at the next public meeting. The gist of stewardship is that once the Conservancy acquires the connecting parcel, we must ensure that that connectivity functions for humans and habitat alike, which is a success story that is easily overlooked, especially if done well. But now, please let me introduce to you Fritz Schroeder, Senior Vice President of Community Impact, the Conservancy program that tells our compelling and vital story.
Good evening, everyone. This last year has been a year like no other, as demonstrated by the technical difficulties I had this evening. And we remained flexible as an engagement and fundraising team as we shifted and launched new programs in response to these challenges. Last spring, we launched Nature Hour, a virtual lecture series which features local and regional experts presenting on a wide range of topics related to work of the Conservancy and our partners. In 1 year, we've had almost 3,000 people attend these lectures and acquired 700 new friends to the Conservancy. We've also expanded our virtual engagement with not one, but two 24-hour streaming cameras on YouTube. We have the Climbers Run Steam camera and the wildly popular Bird Cam. Both have attracted an international audience, engaged our core supporters, and are being developed into virtual curriculums for teachers to share with students, whether in class or from home. On the fundraising front, we reimagined Dine on Harvest Moon and turned it into a 60-minute television fundraiser, truly helping us launch must-see Conservancy TV. While these are successful examples of how creative and nimble our team is, we are very excited to let you know, as of this moment, we plan to host Harvest Moon in person this fall. We are excited to announce we'll be hosting Harvest Moon on Thursday, October 21st at the Fulton Opera House. Starting in June, you'll begin to see us move toward more regular in-person programming. This will kick off with Lancaster Water Week, June 4th through 12th, which will have a mix of in-person and virtual events. Learn about herpetology, hydrology, headwaters, and the history of the Conestoga River, to name just a few of the experiences you can have during Water Week. Last fall, we were fortunate enough to hire Keith Williams as our engagement coordinator to help us scale a comprehensive volunteer program. Our volunteer land steward program has trained 55 people who have already logged over 576 volunteer hours in the last 6 months. Keith has also integrated 23 new outreach volunteers who were stationed at Shanks Ferry this spring and will be at Kelly's Run this summer. This program is important to the long-term success of the Conservancy because we are experiencing increased visitorship across all of our preserves. We want everyone to have a good experience when they hike our trails. Our volunteers are supporting stewardship and making sure that the trails are cleared, invasives are being addressed, and that when people arrive at preserves like Shanks Ferry this spring or Kelly's Run this summer, they are being greeted by knowledgeable volunteers that can direct them towards safe use of our preserves. Climbers Run Nature Center is beginning to open up from its long COVID slumber. Students, campers, scouts, and our community partners are beginning to schedule the space, and you can expect that this year you're going to hear us articulate an expanded vision for what Climbers Run will look like in the future. Finally, your support and the support of others like you make everything that land protection, stewardship, and community impact do possible. We are truly blown away by the level of support we received in 2020 and again here in 2021. The success outlined this evening is only possible because all of you continue to prioritize natural lands, forests, streams, and our precious local ecosystems. Thank you, each and every one of you.
Amen and amen. Our work only happens because there are partners, volunteers, members, and donors. And each annual meeting, we select to honor some of these with an additional tribute and an award of appreciation. This year, we honor Conestoga Township and especially John Berry, Township Supervisor and Roadmaster for Conestoga, with our Municipal Partner Award. Here to thank John is Brandon Tennis again.
John Berry is the Supervisor Chair and Roadmaster for Conestoga County, who every year sees one of the highest peaks of visitation to any of the conservancy's members. The spring wildflower bloom cannot escape John, who starts most of his work days early on the gravel road that leads to this renowned natural display, while pondering the grade and slope of sustainable action. I'm telling you, someone has to do it. Unlike the visitors coming from all over the county and states, including Maryland, DC, and Virginia, John is at Shanks Ferry on the off seasons as well, and deals with issues once the crowds go home, and addresses misuse when all of our eyes are focused elsewhere. This has become one of his many duties, but not just because of work, but also because of love. John has often called me to talk about how he may be able to help protect the preserve, even though the preserve is already protected. That's because John understands that stewardship, or the care for this place, is a regular, almost daily responsibility. The recent improvements at Shanks Ferry that you have experienced is only part of the shared vision between John and the Conservancy. Last year, Conestoga Township sought and was awarded a Susquehanna Riverlands mini grant to take the collaborative vision to the next level. We see another ADA trail. We see the wildflowers along a section of road, often abused because it was often overlooked as part of the preserve, now dedicated to pedestrians only. And guess what? There's unique wildflowers there too. We see township trails tied into Conservancy trails. And I say we, because John sees the Conservancy as a valuable part of the Conestoga community. The Conservancy is pleased to recognize John for his collaborative vision, diligence, and hard work, and we look forward to formally honoring him at a June Conestoga Township Supervisors meeting.
Thank you, Brandon. This year, our Volunteer of the Year award goes to Linda Farrick and her amazing team of volunteers who teach all of us how to create wildlife habitat in our backyards. Here to present the award and talk about Linda and her wildlife habitat initiative is Fritz Schroeder.
Thank you, Phil. A force to be reckoned with is how I would describe this set of volunteers led by Linda Farrick. Community wildlife habitat is a force of three. In addition to Linda, you have Margie Hall and Allison Zeckman, who collectively set out to transform our community one property at a time and have single-handedly trained and met with hundreds of residents, churches, and retirement communities, educating them about the important role of native plants in supporting the complex web of insects, birds, and wildlife that support our very existence as humans on this earth. Late last year, we were notified by the National Wildlife Federation that Lancaster County is the first county in the state of Pennsylvania to be certified as a native habitat, thanks to these incredible volunteers. And while this certification is a truly remarkable accomplishment, it is just the start. Thank you, Linda, Margie, and Allison for your incredible commitment to our community.
Well, thank you so much for taking this time with us today. There are many things I'd like to share with you, but I don't want to keep you from dinner on this beautiful spring evening. I encourage you to read, to be engaged, to join us. But I do want to leave you with a few finishing thoughts here. The Conservancy's time is the next decade. It's always been the next decade, but this decade is most critical. Between 2020 and 2030, we stand at a time that we have a choice as a community, whether we want to protect what we love, whether it's trees, whether it's beautiful streams, whether it's dark night skies, whether it's habitat for insects and birds. We have a chance to protect it or lose it forever. And now is the time we must act. I personally have been driving around the county a lot lately, and I go up to Mount Joy and I see hundreds of acres in new warehouses. I drive down through Willow Valley and I see huge new housing developments. I read in the paper about a new prison coming to a bend of the Conestoga River. I will tell you that the current economic forces have aligned to put pressure on our unprotected natural lands being developed. Whether you're a fan of the Susquehanna or you like the headwaters of the Chickies and the Pequay and the Conewago up in the highlands, these areas are at risk and they are being lost at an unrecoverable pace, subdivided, developed, and filled in. We must save these remaining forests and streams now. So your board, this leadership today, and you as our members and donors have all given us the energy to act and to take risks like never before and use the resources to save what we love. And when I talk about risks, I actually mean going out and being willing to borrow money against the future in certain rare cases where land is at risk from developers. So I encourage you to join us. Put your eyes on the future. Save our natural world and give us a future, Lancaster and York County along the Susquehanna, that we can be proud that we made a huge difference with our gifts, with our time, with our energy. We are doing everything we can to protect it now. We are adding staff. We are strengthening our stewardship efforts to make for sure that habitat is really important. And we are welcoming visitors by adding trails and raising money and putting in the work necessary to protect these wonderful places. Land transactions are not easy. They're incredibly complex. They take long periods of time. And there is no other organization that is doing what Lancaster Conservancy is doing. Conservancies across the state do easements. Nobody is doing the heavy lifting and difficult work of adding land. And we're adding land and protected areas faster than our bigger sisters and brothers in the Western Conservancy and at Natural Lands. We are uniquely positioned to do the work with the talent that we have right now. So my final word here is just thank you. Thank you for being a part of this incredible, small, but mighty organization who is now the protector of 8,000 acres and growing. And this is an organization you should be very proud to be a part of. Have a wonderful evening. And don't forget to tell us what you think and send us your feedback. Now go outside, take a hike, and enjoy this beautiful evening. Thank you again for your support.